Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast that really was a dream all along, because this week we watched Checkmate,
Written by Bill Gallagher.
directed by Nick Horan.
And aired on November 17th, 2009.
For a hot second there, I completely forgot, if I was saying The Prisoner 2009 Checkmate, if I was just saying the title of the episodes, but pretty sure I've only been saying the title of the episodes the past 5 weeks, so...
Yeah, you have just been saying the title of the episode.
All right, good.
So Checkmate it is.
Checkmated it. Good, because again, I hesitated because I couldn't remember for some reason.
Here we are at the end of The Prisoner, 2009. A worthwhile journey, I would say, ultimately, despite the fact that, in my opinion, this was the weakest episode of the 6.
Yeah, but that's probably just because it had to explain everything.
Mm-hmm. And, for a second there, I didn't think that what we both agreed on at the beginning of the series was going to turn out to be the case. Way back, I think it was in episode 1, we were like, this show really gives you the feeling that it's all going to be explained at the end. Schizoid threw me for a loop for a bit. It kind of made me think that it wouldn't all be revealed at the end, but it was.
It was, and I don't know, never really had any doubt that at the end of the day it would all be explained. Didn't think that this was going to be the explanation, so we should probably explain, because I've got some things I want to talk about with this, because it's just, there is kind of a lot to unpack here, even though it was maybe not the most exciting episode. I think there are a lot of themes and ideas to unpack here. So, basically we pick up again where we left off kind of last week. 6 sees a bus come into the village and he runs up and he tries to ask them, where are you from? And they're like, oh, we're from the bus. And he's like, no, where did you get on the bus, I mean?
And they say, curiously enough, the village.
Is it curious? Was it Harmony? We find out he was a bus driver for bus tours in the village, so allegedly.
Yeah, but they say they got, on at the village, and now they're getting off at the village, too. And they're newcomers, so, yeah.
Yeah, all right, fine, fair, I'll give you that one. And so he's like, well, shoot. But then he collapses. He falls over and collapses and then gets pulled into the hospital clinic where they're like, guess what, 6? You're dying.
Yeah, that's the biggest, draw and appeal of this episode for me, is that, 6 is sick.
Was that intentional?
I don't know, and I don't care, but it's great. Or 'cause it's great, I guess I should say. It's all really hot outside, and you can tell how just arid and dry it all is, and he's just bundled up. He's just freezing.
Yeah, he's dying of the village death, which is, I guess, just a thing that happens to people in the village. They just die, just like how holes just appear.
Just like in real life. Maybe the village is the entire world, right? People die in real life in the world, so...
Great, people die in real life, people die in the village, therefore confirmed village is real life.
Exactly.
It's the flimsiest argument I've ever heard.
But it's true.
True is a curious word to use there.
Well, 313 is also going through her own little dilemma. She's seeing some visions, seeing some sights that may or may not be real.
Nothing any of them are seeing could be real, might all be fake, I don't know. 6 basically insists that he's going to find a way out of this village before he dies, which, okay, sure.
Yeah, knock yourself out.
Literally.
Yeah, I guess. 147 is a bit concerned, though. He says he knows a guy who can help 6. So they go to the outskirts of the town. But not the outskirts we've seen before. These are new outskirts. Maybe we had seen them before, though, in the episode, in the third episode, the scene at the beginning of Anvil, where 6 wakes up, and they're sort of on these outskirts, and there's that like fight going on in the background. Maybe that's here. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really know because, again, unlike the original Prisoner, you didn't exactly in the original show either, but in this one you definitely don't have a sense of space in the village whatsoever. Probably because it is just a dream, and like dreams similarly don't really have a sense of space or travel. Like all of a sudden, in a dream you'll just be somewhere, right? It's not like sometimes you do travel to places in dreams, but a lot of the time it's just like all of a sudden you were there.
I had a dream this week where the entire plot of the dream was traveling from point A to point B. So there's a curious scene here where the 1112 is going to the grave of someone named 909, and 6 also goes there. And did we ever know who 909 was? Or is that just something that was introduced in this episode?
Yeah, I thought 909, when I was watching it, I thought 909 was the guy who died in episode 1, but that was actually 93. Was 909 was that 147's daughter? Yes, it was, actually. No. 909 was the guy 6 was with in Anvil. I think it was. Yeah, it was. It says
the undercover.
It
in my
says
notes.
That on the episode list on Wikipedia.
909 is the one who 1112 had that illicit relationship with. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes,
now.
I forgot about that. Really.
That makes a lot of sense.
Really missed
now.
the emotional thrust of that scene because I had forgotten about that.
Yeah, same.
Maybe the original Prisoner had the better idea, which is like there really was nothing emotional about it, and the characters were numbers, but it was okay because you didn't really have to know the number, and there was nothing like really emotional like this about it. Whereas this one, it's just like, yes, these numbers are characters, and you do have to know the number. I mean, for God's sake, it took me 3 episodes, half the show, to memorize 313. So maybe that's on me, but maybe partially on the show too.
I mean, the show never really used everybody's names often enough for it to get drilled into our mind, in my opinion.
In our minds. And they didn't have the badges either. The original show, they put the badges on the characters at all times almost.
That's also true, yeah.
You would just know.
I didn't even think about that.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a shortcoming, though.
No, it's just different.
And it adds to that dreamlike quality, regardless of, intention or whatever the case might be for why they didn't do it or why they either chose not to do it or just didn't even cross their minds. It adds to the dreamlike nature of it where you kind of don't really know who people are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you do kind of miss the emotion behind this scene regardless, so if you don't know.
Even the main thrust of the whole scene is completely lost if you forget that. But why is he even here is completely missing if you don't have that.
And unfortunately, I did enjoy this show overall, but I'll speak for myself here, though I think you probably have the same opinion, is I didn't like this show enough to really care beyond, wow, I don't know who 909 is.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I was just like, wow, I don't know who 909 is. that was it. I was like, okay. I was like, okay, moving on. Because this episode just moves right past it too. It doesn't really come up again. It comes up once in dialogue in the episode, but that's it.
Right. It wasn't even a memorable enough subplot, honestly, to warrant this, but whatever.
My note is, who was 909 and why were they buried in the middle of the desert? Because his tombstone, his gravestone, his grave marker is literally in the middle of the desert. Like, there's no graveyard surrounding it. It's just, like, out there.
I thought it was next to some buildings, but yeah, it's just a lone grave. Maybe it wasn't next to buildings. I don't really remember.
I thought it was just in the middle of the desert.
Meanwhile, in the quote real world unquote, 6 is also being taken somewhere by that version of 147.
Yeah, so this was interesting because it kind of mirrors 6's first interaction with 147 in the village, where he gets into the taxi and gets taken to the to what's her name's house. To the bar, but then to what's her name's house later on. 523. 554, sorry, 554. And I was like, I wonder if there's like intentional, like I wonder if you played the real life scenes in reverse till the middle of the season where they sync up, if they would like mirror sync with the first half of the village season. And I thought about it for a bit and I was like, kind of.
I don't know. Maybe. Again, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's interesting, but I didn't care enough about the show to really actually care or think about it any more than just like, you know?
I mean, I've got some thoughts about this show. I've got some thoughts I talk about at the end.
Yeah, go ahead. Because I came out of this, especially with this last episode, it just left me lukewarm. I like the show, but yeah, it's okay overall.
I think a lot of people expected that of us. Expected that opinion.
Yeah, and strangely enough, like us both, just liking the show is more than what most people like not actively, but like most people dislike it. They're on the other side of like just thinking it's mediocre or not caring. Right? It's an actual dislike. That's what I've seen. At least.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about this because it did provoke some thoughts in me, like the original show. But we'll get there because we need to drop the big reveal. But so Michael calls 147 in the real world 147, and he just like doesn't even react to this.
Yeah, he doesn't know what's going on. He brings him though to Curtis, right. Real world 2. And Helen, his wife.
Who's comatose. In some way. Lying on a chair.
Yeah.
Knocked out.
You can kind of see small movements of her eyes and stuff, but like, yeah, she's basically not present.
There's this kind of now like dual scene between 2 and 6 and Curtis and Michael. 2 says something like, they keep us in here to control our minds up there, referring to Summer Core.
Right. So they are all in a dream. That's revealed.
That's actually not revealed yet.
Oh, it's not?
No. First we have a scene between 6 and 2 where 1112 says, I'm number 2's son, and he tells 1112 that 313 told him about the pills, and he wonders if his mom is dying, because he finds that out before we find out that Helen is the basis for the dream.
Oh, right. Yeah, and you can kind of piece together at this point that, like, especially based on what we heard in the last episode where, Helen in the village was telling 1112 how he can't leave the village because he was born there, and you're like, okay, so he's only in the dream. Or he's only in the village version of reality.
Yeah. And then in the Curtis Michael scene, Curtis has this really interesting line where he says, if there are 2 layers of consciousness, dreaming and the real world, why not more?
Why not more village?
More village. That's set up at the beginning of the episode too, with a billboard with Two's face on it that says more village.
Right. And that's kind of throughout the whole episode. They're expanding the village, or they're going to build another village. I don't think it's made 100% clear. At least if it is.
It's just like the pig's breath. It's just another thing that's happening.
Yeah. It's how it ends, though. I mean, it's definitely important, because that's the ending of the show, is that there's going to be another village.
There's going to be more village.
Yeah.
Curtis basically explains that the village is like a dream, that people dream, and that Helen, his wife, was the first dream that they set up, and she controls the dream because of that. Everybody else is dreaming, but they're in her dream. It's like a shared dream. And that the village dream concept was designed to be a place to, quote, rekindle, unquote, people's spirit. And that Michael's job in the real world at Summercore was to find people to go to the village.
Yet their real lives continued concurrently, I guess.
Yeah, while this conversation's going on too, 1112 grabs a pillow and suffocates his mom in the village.
Yep. Causing Helen to sort of stir and wake up.
Mm-hmm. So that's a problem.
A problem for the village, because as we speculated a couple weeks ago, the holes are connected to Helen, and now that she is gone, they're just opening up left and right.
Mm-hmm. Great. Back into the village. 6 is dying in a hospital corridor, and 2 is like, would you like this large or small bouquet?
Right, he's sort of measuring these wreaths against 6. But as this is going on, 1112 is also dying by his own hand.
Yeah, and the darkest thing we've seen on Inevitable yet, he hangs himself.
Yep. And you get to see, the show gives you the pleasure of seeing the rope marks around his neck as 2 carries him to his glass casket.
Yeah, he basically lies in state for the rest of the episode.
313 is still seeing visions. You just get a little scene of that here, I believe. She's looking into her mirror and she's seeing some sort of dark space. She's seeing the Venom Peter Parker version of herself. Sorry, the Venom Tobey Maguire version.
Great, thank you. Thank you for bringing that back.
He wasn't even infected by the Venom parasite, like, when he was doing all that stuff, if you remember.
No, he was just being weird.
Yeah. So that's where she's at. Things are going good.
Clearly, yeah, things are going great. Things are going great in the village because 2 just found, like, 1112's body, and he goes to meet with 147, I guess, to share in their commiseration since they both lost kids.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Curtis and Michael are in a car together. Which I guess might be being driven by 147, the real version of 147. I don't remember.
I think it is, yeah. I think he basically serves as Michael's driver in this episode.
Mm-hmm. They have a conversation about... I think Curtis points out some people on the street who have been initiated into the program, and, you know, how the village is affecting and helping them get over their traumas and stuff like that. And Michael basically just goes, like, they didn't sign up for this, didn't want it, type thing.
He also says that you can't fix everybody. You know, I'm a human and I have 1,000 flaws, and I won't make every right choice, but you can't fix that. Can't change that.
Right. I forget Curtis's response to this, if he even has one. Maybe he just goes like, watch us.
I don't think he has a response because I think we cut back to the village where 2 is talking about losing his son to 147. And we forgot to mention at this point that 2, or Curtis actually explained to Michael that part of the reason the village started and part of the reason he put Helen and himself in there is because they couldn't have a kid in the real world. But they figured in the dream world, why not?
Right, and that's obviously 11-12, or was, since he's already bitten the dust.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the rest of the episode takes place at 11-12's funeral. They're all there.
Well, 6 dies first. 6 dies. And then 313 comes to 6 and goes, I want 6 to live. And 2 goes, well, I can make that happen, but you'll have to be willing to give yourself to him.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Completely forgot that happened.
And then 2 goes, death was not enough to crack 6, but in the village, death is not the end. He says something like he's in love with his own humanity. And then we get this really wild scene where 6 is in like a circular room with just 2, a la Once Upon a Time, and he's like, let me go, I want to leave. And 2 says, I'm a free man. And 2 says, I see no locked doors.
But isn't Rover there, keeping him in?
I don't remember, maybe.
I don't remember either.
So, after that whole Once Upon a Time sequence, where 2 and 6 battle to find, I guess, the inner each other, 6 returns to life in the village, and now they go to 11-12's funeral. But concurrently in the real world, Curtis and Michael are at a church? Or maybe this is at the church at the funeral? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was at the church at the funeral.
But it's clearly the real world version of 313. So, like, how does that make sense?
I thought she just reverted to that version in the village or something.
No, because he calls her Sarah. He doesn't call her 313. Her name's Sarah.
Yeah, maybe he just knows, like, I don't know. Maybe he just knows. And yeah, it is a scene that makes you question, like, the 2 are, as we've seen before in all the episodes, the 2 different timelines are colliding and it's hard to discern which one's which.
Earlier in the taxi, 2 had told 147 that when the time comes, he must say that 2 is the one. That comes back in a minute, which is why I'm mentioning it now before we forget.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of it is kind of just a blur to me. It's the most dreamlike the show gets, and I watched it days ago.
Well, so they're at the funeral, and 2 just goes, you're all prisoners here. 6 was right all along. You're all prisoners here. You're trapped in the village. And people are like, boo. And they hate that. They hate being told that they're prisoners. So some kid throws a rock at 2 and bangs him on the skull.
Right. Oh, yeah, Hole is also opening up as all this happens right nearby.
Yeah, he says that the holes are a problem that, there's a solution to fix, but only 6 can fix it. 6 is the one to fix this. 6 is the one. And then he says, breathe in the air, breathe in more village. Just like, what is going on?
Eventually, though, he once again sticks a grenade in his mouth and pulls the pin.
Well, not before he explains the situation. 313 comes up next to 6, and 6 is like, what's going on? He's like, 6, you're the one. And 147 goes, 6 is the one to save us all. 6 will save us. 6 is the one. And then 2 gives him a whole bunch of pills, and then he tells him, you figured it out, haven't you? Somebody needs to maintain the dream. And he's going to take the pill. So the mysterious pill, throwback to, was it Anvil, Harmony? When 313 examined the pills and was like, this one has no known compounds in it. Turns out that pill's to maintain the dream, basically, and keep them in a coma. So 6 is about to take it, but 313's like, no, I'll do it. I have to give myself to you completely. Guess they're in love. So 313 takes over the dream, and then 2 says, that's it for me. And then he does what you said, puts a grenade in his mouth, and we see his head just blow up. Then he wakes up in the real world with Helen. Six is like, even after two blows his head off, Six is unsure about taking over the village. But then he gives in. He gives in to his inner desire to create a better village for everybody. He thinks that he can do it better, which I think is just such a poetic end to this readaptation of a classic TV show.
He's probably going to do it worse. The final shot is him and 313 just sitting out in the middle of the desert. And yeah, like you said, him saying he can do it better.
313 is comatose like Two's wife was. I think she's M2, but anyway.
She's what?
I think she's the character identified as M2 in the village. I think that's her designation.
Oh. Huh.
Meanwhile, all of this is playing. They're playing more Beach Boys.
Yeah. Maybe 6 won't make the mistake of hiding the ocean from people. Maybe people will actually be able to, find inner peace or whatever if they have the sea nearby or something. I don't know. There's something calming about it. So. Yeah.
Well, on Dylan's Beach Boys talk for the week, the song that's playing ties in pretty much perfectly to this end here. The lyrics are like, I know there's an answer, I just have to find it myself, but the song itself is on Pet Sounds, which is the album before Smile. And the song, it's called I Know There's an Answer, and it's specifically written not just about Brian Wilson's experience with LSD, but his subsequent struggle with something called ego death, which is, quote, the complete loss of a subjective self-identity, close quote. So for a song about the complete loss of your own identity to play, while 6 takes over the village, takes on the role of number 2, and begins to run the village thinking he can do it better, it's just such a poetic touch at the end that I loved it.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I was just, again, left lukewarm by all of this. I just really didn't care, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, this constant use of the Beach Boys and allegorizing, is that a word? It is now. Brian Wilson struggles with LSD and hallucinations, and his struggles that he expressed through music, and using that music to underscore Six's struggle with his own self-identity and the hallucinations in the village is really interesting, and I think Gallagher and Horan are doing something really interesting with that in this show, much more so than the original did. That's the one thing I think that this show did do a lot better than the original, which is that it used the audio format in a really unique way, comparatively.
Yeah, I mean, the original, the soundtrack was, it was memorable. Like, there's tracks that I could probably hum right now, but yeah. And the spy theme or whatever. But yeah, it was just that. It was just like, contrast that with the soundtrack for this show. Just I guess what you would call incidental music. This one you couldn't hum or whistle at all because it was more ambient. But the soundtrack for the original was just there most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Except maybe for
purpose.
Except maybe at the end when they played the Beatles thing. All you need.
Which again,
is
the fact that they're using the Beach Boys, which is a contemporaneous and in some ways rival band to the Beatles who have played in the original, is also quite a choice.
Exactly. It shows that they're not moving forward. They're going back in time. It's 2009, yet they're still stuck in the 60s. I'm kidding, obviously. Oh, maybe not. I don't know. It might be something.
Well, I think it might be, tying into the fact that dreams basically exist out of time, that dreams are never set into one time period. You're never set to dream only about, if I went to bed tonight, I'm not set to dream only about March 27th, 2021. I could dream about literally any period in human history, including times to come.
Yeah, that's true. Although some dreams do have set times, right? Like if there's a phone in your dream, it's obviously not taking place in like 734 AD or something.
Sure. I mean, yeah, sure. Dreams have set times, but that set time is not necessarily like the day that you're dreaming.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you have an
And
entire history to dream of.
which is interesting because the Beatles were like contemporaneous with the original Prisoner, but are now like old, you know? We're not old, but
They're
not
old.
new.
They're old. They're just like 60 years old. So,
Yeah, well, a lot of our listeners were born around 60, 70 and probably wouldn't appreciate me saying that those things are old, so you know. Also, this ending with like Michael taking over the village and becoming number one basically like solidified. I talked about last week a lot of parallels between this and the Philip K. Dick book Ubik, and how the plots are very similar. And I was thinking this. So spoilers for the end of Ubik, I guess. If you're gonna read it, tune out. This like 40-year-old book at this point, but at the end of the book, the main character takes over protecting this afterlife area, this dream afterlife area, from this malevolent force. He takes over protecting that world from the previous protector who is dying or passing on or leaving that world. And so those parallels between that book and this series give me pause, and I don't have a lot to say on that now, but I think I'm going to try to put together a blog post on it because that's something that I think would be suited to the blog format. I would also need to remind myself of some of the intricacies of Ubik since it's been a while since I've read it.
yeah, get on that philipkdick.fandom.com. Little refresher.
Is there a Philip K. Dick wiki?
There probably is.
I'm Googling it to find out.
All right.
There is. It's pkd.fandom.com.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, my parallels are just interesting. Well, I don't know what else to say. I did like that in this. I did like that we get an explicit explanation for everything, and that at the end, 6 basically gives in to his temptation, showing that in this version, the village did break 6, and 6 takes over. It kind of, to me, like reframed some of the things previously, that this show was less about trying to find out why he resigned, because Curtis clearly knows why he resigned in the real world. He just didn't want to let him resign, and is more like they're training 6 to be the replacement, number 2/number 1, which is a theory we had and that people have about the original show. So it's interesting to have it solidified as explicit for the new show.
Yeah, it's definitely a different conflict, and for the better, I would say.
I agree. I mean, you can only do the like, why did you resign so many times before it's boring.
And even the original was being stretched thin, God, at 17 episodes. So I'm really glad they didn't just rehash the same concept. Instead, just kind of drawing on kind of the vibe the original gives you. Maybe, obviously, they're drawing on the whole number 6 and number 2 village thing, but like, they also heavily, like, since it's not really the same plot, it's also heavily drawing on just kind of the feeling the original one gives you of something wrong, something unsettling.
Yeah, and this one's also playing, I think, with the theme that was in the original, which was the village is like a microcosm of society. I think you brought this up, Keon, when we talked about the village originally, with like, you can only criticize society by referencing it against something, basically. Or like, you know, everything is a reference to something else. And I think this one plays with that as well, with the village being like a microcosm of society because it's a dream created by someone living in society. It's a little muddled. I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say with that, except that they were dealing with that similar theme of the village being a simulation of society, this one more so than the original.
Yeah, and it's like, this one, the people in the village, for the most part, didn't even know there was anything beyond the village, whereas in the original show, they did. I guess it's like in the original one, this isn't what I was going to say, but like, number 6, what's kind of scary about the village in the original one is that, like, the village obviously encompasses more than just what is shown to be the village, right? Number 6 escapes multiple times, but he's pulled back because they have power outside of that small domain.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this one is, completely removing that question by just having the village be the entire thing, I guess.
This one also puts the village in a more ethereal space. It kind of removes the question of like, where is the village when the village is everywhere but nowhere at the same time because it's a dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, all right, Swakopmund or Port Marion?
I mean, in like what context?
Just no context, just one or the other, I guess. Whatever context you want to conjure up for this question.
In a way, I would rather vacation in Swakopmund than Port Marion, because if I wanted to go to like an Italian seaside village, I would just go to Italy. Swakopmund is unique in its like architectural / societal existence, whereas Port Marion is very much riffing off of / copying Italian seaside villages.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know though. I would want to see the Green Dome in person.
Would you really? Well, if Decorative Vegetable Studios had a budget, we could pay for a business trip out there, but we don't, so we won't.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
I think I think both of them work as visuals for their respective TV shows. Both of them have a weird out of time feeling, and maybe the Swakopmund not emulating anywhere else on Earth makes more sense since it's a dream and is kind of therefore an amalgamation of many things, whereas Port Marion was clearly playing a village that was on Earth, so somebody would design it in some way, some weird wacky way like that. They serve their purposes.
Yeah. I don't really have much else to say on this episode or the show. I guess my final thoughts would be that I do like this show. I would recommend it. I think it's a worthwhile watch. I don't think it surpassed the original in how much I liked it, but yeah, I think it's a good show overall.
Yeah, I think I agree. We didn't talk about the deleted scenes for this week. But I think I agree. It's a good show. Maybe I don't like it as much as the original. Maybe I do. I don't know. I don't know, and I don't really care to decide right now either. I do think it was clearly made by someone who loved maybe even the original show and put a lot of care into it and had a lot of really interesting ideas. And it plays with a lot of interesting themes and does it pretty well. And I guess like maybe the ending is underwhelming depending on what you expect, but I think it was just fine.
Yeah, people talk about this show like it's some sort of creatively bankrupt, thing, but I don't think it is.
No, I don't think so either. And I think like the original, and maybe this is why a lot of people don't like it. Maybe this is why people say it's creatively bankrupt, is I think the original Prisoner had a very interesting quality about it where like you very much got out of it what you put into it. You could just watch every episode and not think about it, and you wouldn't really get the same experience, or you wouldn't maybe even get anything out of it as compared to people who sit down and
do a podcast
watch
about
it. Well, not that, but like just think about what Patrick McGoohan is trying to get you to think about. And I think this is similar. Like you get out of it what you put into it. Like you could just watch this with the eye of like, well, it's an adaptation of a TV show I love, so like obviously it's not going to be as good, and then that's what you're going to get out of it. But I don't know. I think sitting here and like picking apart all the Beach Boys music and picking apart the dreamlike, trying to pick apart the dreamlike logic has made me appreciate this series, because it really is like what you put in is what you get out. And in that aspect, it's a very faithful adaptation of the original, because the original is like that a lot.
Yeah, sure.
Should we talk about the deleted scenes in this final episode?
We've been doing it for the whole time, so yes.
So just not for the final episode, is what? No, I'm kidding.
The first one, I believe, is just an extended scene. It's 313 putting on lipstick, and in the deleted scene, she draws the shape that she's been drawing on the slips of paper on her face with the lipstick.
The second one is also just an extended scene. It's the hospital hallway, and 2 starts to sing, and he talks about how the dance ends and dead people don't get to dance, which, haha, that oblique Dance of the Dead reference.
Yeah. I wonder if there are any more references like that we just didn't even catch.
I feel like there are. I mean, like, the scene with 2 and 6 in that circular room has to be a reference to Once Upon a Time. Like, there's no way I can see it not being a reference to that. I'm sure there's probably more like that scattered throughout the series we didn't pick up on. But then 313 sees him, and this actually explains something that I was wondering in the episode, which is how did 313 know that 6 was dying? But she then tells 6 about Summer Core, and that's, I think, where the scene ends.
The next scene, my only note for it is WTF is this?
Yeah, I had the same thing. So I tried to plot out. It's like, I think it's the kid from Anvil or Harmony when 6 is spying on the kid, or the kid is spying on 6, and she's like, I can see dead people, like, you're dying, like, the dead people are coming, and 1112 walks among the dead. And I was like, what is happening? I have zero conception of how or where this scene fits into this episode.
Yeah, I had no clue what this could possibly be. And yeah, that's the only person I could think that this is the kid from Anvil.
I don't know. I have literally no idea. The next scene is 6 breaks into the palace and kidnaps 2's wife. Again, a scene that I don't know where it would fit into this episode at all. 2's wife says something like, what happened to my child? And 6 is like, oh, he's doing great. Like, sweating, pulling at his collar, like, yeah, he's totally great.
And the final one is 313 deliberating something.
With the lady in the mirror again.
Right, which is her AU self.
Her mirror universe version of herself. And that's it. That. Those are the deleted scenes. There's a commentary for the final episode too. I know we mentioned it on Arrival. There was a commentary. There's one here on Checkmate too. I think with Bill Gallagher. I think with Bill Gallagher and Nick Horan, but I don't actually know.
I don't know. My DVD's on the other side of the room. I'm not going to get up and...
It doesn't say. On the back of the box, it doesn't say. So...
No. I didn't listen to it. I was going to, and I was going to check out some of the bonus content on Disc 3 as well. I just didn't have the time this week, so... Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't have time today to watch the bonus features, but maybe I'll check them out later at some point. Maybe when I'm writing my Ubik, the Prisoner Manifesto piece for the blog. It's going to be my magnum opus.
Oh my God.
The greatest thing I've ever written. I'll just sail off into the night after publishing that. People will completely reevaluate The Prisoner after reading it. That's a lie. No one's going to do that, but no one's going to read it. But
wow, harsh on yourself, but okay.
Look, stats don't lie.
Yeah, it's realistic, but still harsh. Yeah, some of the bonus content might be good for blog posts. We're still doing our blog thing occasionally, I guess. So, despite the fact that no one's reading it, just for fun.
Yeah, things will go up there when we have ideas.
Yeah.
Like, I'm planning on writing also another prisoner-related one about Kafka's The Castle whenever I read that. It's not dead. It's just
on life support.
no one's reading it. Yes, it's not dead. It's just. So I think that's it.
Yeah, we got a comment, not specifically on any one Prisoner episode, but just on the series as a whole from Keith, who joined us in talking about a couple episodes of the original Prisoner, and obviously who's been a friend of the show for quite a long time. So he had like a really insightful comment on Twitter. He went, "I find it ironic that The Prisoner is described as a cult show, despite it having a big audience and constant acclaim. The 2009 version is truly a cult show, as few people have had the chance to watch it, and it is rarely discussed. I still maintain the 2009 show is massively underrated, and quite bizarre at times. It's just a shame the lead is such a bland actor." And that was a really good point. You know, the original Prisoner is called a cult show, yet, yeah, and Keith said it better than anyone else. It receives constant acclaim and has a big audience. This one is definitely, you know, it falls into that status more because it has way fewer fans.
Fewer fans, fewer views, fewer discussions online.
It's just fewer all around.
Fewer episodes. Yeah, I think that's a good point, Keith.
Jim Caviezel definitely is bland. Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
I think it works when he's playing a role that requires it, like on Person of Interest. He's playing a character who's like talks very little and just, you know, enters the room and breaks kneecaps instead of asking questions. So like it works really well there. I don't know if that's just every character he plays, because then I would be like, But, you know, it works when it works, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't, you know? So.
Yeah, he's no Patrick McGoohan, but I remember talking about this on probably episode 1 or 2, was like, if he tried to be Patrick McGoohan, he would fail.
Because no one can be Patrick McGoohan.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
No one can be Patrick McGoohan, except Patrick.
Yeah. And there wouldn't even be this question of, like, you know, can he match... If there wasn't such a thing as, like... I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but, like, just the very fact that we're saying this is just a testament to that, like, thing that no one, you know, no one can be him. No one can replicate what he did with the original Prisoner in that role. And I mean,
if his personality wasn't so dominant, we wouldn't be talking about it either. Like, if Six wasn't so Patrick McGoohan.
Yeah, and it's like, it might be a bit of an overstatement to say this, or it might make something as mundane as playing a character into something more. But it's like, what Patrick McGoohan did with the number 6 role on the original Prisoner will never be done again. It'll never be replicated. I think it's totally unique. Just how he played the character, just the meta stuff he brought to it. Maybe we should have done a bonus episode at the end, but not on the bonus features, on like, what would we do? How would we remake The Prisoner? We've had a lot of fun talking about what we would do if we were in charge of Doctor Who. Yeah, see, I made that slip and said when. Just going to show you how conceited I am, thinking that we one day will run Doctor Who.
Look, stranger things have happened. A lot of people would raise an eyebrow if the BBC hired like a physicist and an English major from freaking California to run Doctor Who. A lot of people would raise eyebrows.
I would cast The Rock as number 2. You know, and I would tie it in with Doctor Who as well, because obviously you would cast him as the Doctor. That could be fun. Maybe that'll be something that appears on the blog, because I don't think we are going to do a bonus episode for this. Maybe that'll appear on the blog soon of like, hey, what would we do with the prisoner?
I would cast Barack Obama as number 2 just to get the just to revive the weird intersectionality between the fictional world and the real world. That's the original prisoner was so famous for.
Oh my god! And put him in a Patrick McGowan wig or something.
I'll give him the outfit. I'll give him the coat.
Yeah, exactly. The mask, or not the mask. The
black and white thing.
Yeah, the suit. I don't know why I said mask. Number 6 doesn't wear a mask. Maybe that's like, maybe that was some sort of, flip or something where it's like number 2 wears this mask, or number 6. I don't know.
People don't come to our shows for, the smart remakes. They come for the inspired casting choices like Barack Obama as number 2.
Look, all I'm saying is that this show ultimately did leave me lukewarm. If I were to remake The Prisoner, I would make sure it leaves no one lukewarm.
You would want the Patrick McGowan, either they're going to hate it or they're going to love it ending.
Exactly, and I'd make sure that at least 80% are in the former camp.
Well, you've just completely shot down any chances you've had of running this show. No one would hire you to make a show that 80% of people are going to hate.
Look, if people aren't vehemently hating something, then it's doing something wrong. And if they are, then it's doing something right.
I could say something about like 50-something% of America hating Donald Trump and like what
shows. Okay, let's restrict this to media,
Oh, yeah. Probably a good thing you do that.
But we don't have to,
For all those people who hate Fox News, all the majority of America that hates Fox News, that's a TV show.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's obviously doing something right then.
All right, well, I guess you just want that out in the world on recording.
Yeah, why not? I mean, we can be audio deep-faked into saying anything with the hours and hours we put out there. Why not?
On that bombshell, next week we'll be starting Lex Season 1, so if you'd like to email us about Lex or about The Prisoner 2009, be sure to reach out at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on everything we're watching for Inevitable ever, including all the ones we haven't announced yet. Send us emails about them. You can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter, TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. Next time, like you said, we're going to be starting Lex. But until then, the end.